All right, 2026 is kicking off with an absolute bang, and Snowflake is not wasting any time. They're already shipping a ton of new features. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down the biggest, most important product updates from January. We're talking everything from a massive acquisition to some real game-changing tools for governance and for developers. Let's dive right in.
So the big question we've got to ask right out of the gate is this: how are all these updates actually shaping the future of the data landscape? Because, what we saw this month wasn't just some random collection of new buttons and features. No, this was a series of really strategic moves that tell us exactly where the AI data cloud is heading.
And to really get a handle on their biggest move, let's just start with a number. $50 billion plus. Now, what on earth could that be? It's not revenue. Nope. It's the size of the market that Snowflake just made a huge, and I mean huge, and very strategic play.
Okay, so that number, it all points to this: a major play in observability. On January 8th, Snowflake announced it intends to acquire Observe, which is a cloud-native observability platform. Honestly, this was the headline grabber of the month, and it signals a massive expansion of Snowflake's ambitions.
So what even is observability? Well, think of it like the ultimate high-tech health check for your complex, modern applications. It's all about pulling together every single signal your systems are putting out. We're talking logs, metrics, traces, and getting them all into one place. This helps you understand not just if something is broken, but more importantly, why. And this slide, well, it just lays it all out perfectly. The old way meant you were juggling all these separate tools for your analytics and your observability data. It was a costly, siloed nightmare and super slow. The Snowflake way, now supercharged by this Observe acquisition, is all about unification. And look, this isn't just for convenience. It's part of a huge industry trend where these data platforms are becoming these all-in-one operational hubs. You can use the exact same platform for your business analytics and for troubleshooting your live production systems. It's a big deal. Okay, so building on that whole idea of unification, Snowflake also spent January really doubling down on a critical foundation for any big enterprise: trust. And for them, that comes from rolling out some powerful new governance features. A perfect example of this in action is the new sensitive data classification feature, which it previewed on January 16th. And it's this super straightforward three-step process. First, you define your rules for sensitive data, PII, that kind of thing. Then, you just let Snowflake automatically scan and tag it for you. And finally, you can review everything in one centralized dashboard. I mean, for anyone working in a regulated industry, this is a huge win. All right, let's switch gears and talk about a headache that, almost every data team has felt. You're using a bunch of different tools to move and transform your data. Maybe you've got Airflow over here, dbt over there. The problem is, you end up with these massive pipeline blind spots. You just can't see the full journey of your data from the very beginning all the way to its final destination. And here's the solution, which also went into preview on January 16th. It's called External Lineage. Snowflake is now using the OpenLineage standard to literally pull in all that lineage information from your external tools. And what that means is you can finally see the entire end-to-end data flow right inside of Snowsight. This quote from the source material just hits the nail on the head. No more blind spots in hybrid/multi-tool pipelines, massive for data trust and debugging. And that's the key, right? This isn't just some pretty picture to look at. As the quote says, it's a fundamental tool for building data products you can actually trust. When something breaks, you can trace it back in seconds.
Next up, let's talk about the builders, the data engineers, the developers. Snowflake also dropped a whole set of updates designed specifically to supercharge their workflows, helping them build applications that aren't just faster, but way more resilient too.
So what we've got here is this great mix of resilience, usability, and just raw performance. For resilience, there's Workspace Replication, which lets you create entire backups of your dev environments for disaster recovery. For usability, custom semantic instructions are fantastic. They help you bridge that gap between the technical data and your business users by adding plain English context. And then for performance, search optimization got a huge boost. It now speeds up queries on structured data types like variant and object, which, is just Snowflake's fancy way of handling semi-structured data like JSON. Okay, so we've got observability, we've got governance, we've got dev tools, but what's the common thread here? How does this all fit together? Well, all of these individual pieces, they all point towards Snowflake's bigger strategy, which is all about building the absolute best platform for enterprise data and, more, for AI.
And this timeline really just drives home the incredible pace we're talking about.
You've got the Observe acquisition announced on the 8th, then new dev and semantic features on the 12th and 14th, and then the major governance previews drop on the 16th. It was an absolutely packed month, and you can see how every single release builds on the others.
So what are the big takeaways here? Well, first, Snowflake is making a massive strategic leap into observability. They're unifying analytics and IT operations. Second, they're reinforcing governance as the absolute bedrock of data trust. Third, they're empowering developers with tools for resilience and real efficiency. And when you put it all together, it all points to one thing: a clear, deliberate focus on making the entire platform AI-ready.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question. Looking at this powerful combination of observability, governance, and developer tools, which of these updates is going to be the one that changes your data strategy in 2026? It's definitely a lot to think about. Thanks for joining us for this